What's going on, hikers? Now, today's video is going to be about my cook kit, which is one of the lightest and most hassle-free systems for boiling 2 cups, also known as 475 milliliters of water. And that's the typical amount needed to rehydrate meals. But again, it's not the lightest cook kit that can be had. Now, even though I'm an ultralighter, the absolute lightest of something isn't necessarily what I use. I try to balance reliability, simplicity, and effectiveness of purpose in my decisions, but weight is a priority. So before we jump in, let's quickly talk about various other cook systems. The absolute lightest cook kit is, of course, no cook kit at all, and this is known as going stoveless. And there are two ideas about food when going stoveless. The first stoveless method is to just add water to a dehydrated type meal a few hours before reaching camp, and then just deal with what you end up with. That's called cold soaking. The second method is to simply eat power bars, nuts, or whatever else may be lurking in your food bag, and you don't rehydrate anything at all. Now, going stoveless works for some, it's just not for me. I actually look forward to a hot meal at the end of a long hiking day. Now, I'm not going to spend any time talking about twig burning stoves. In my opinion, they're a terrible idea for the AT because the AT is a wet and soggy place for days on end, or it can be at least. Next are two very popular stoves on the AT, jet boils and pocket rockets. Now, these are canister-based stoves, much like what my kit uses, but these are so popular that I thought I'd include them anyway. Now, I started with a jet boil many years ago, and it works great, but for just boiling 2 cups of water, it's unnecessarily big and heavy, so I moved on to a pocket rocket. Now, there are a couple of versions of pocket rockets, with one being lighter than the other, and they're both very high quality stoves, but neither are as light as the stove that I use now. Esbit stoves are very light and use a solid fuel called esbit tabs, but in my opinion, the negatives of esbit stoves exceed whatever weight savings there are to be had. The biggest problem with esbit stoves is finding esbit tabs at your typical resupply stores like Dollar Generals or local grocery stores. Plus, esbit has a fishy smell and leaves a black residue on the bottom of your cup. And finally, we have alcohol stoves, which are also very light, and many enjoy the DIY aspect of this style of cook kit. Plus, the various fuels that work in alcohol stoves are relatively easy to find along the AT. But to enjoy any weight savings versus my kit, you have to resupply this fuel every 3 to 5 days. So those are my thoughts on a few different stove options. So now let's go over my cook kit. This is everything in my cook system. A mini Bic lighter, 1/4 of a bandana, an MSR folding nylon spork, a 110-gram fuel canister, the ultralight version of the Toke's 550 milliliter titanium cup without the lid, radiant cooking pouch, and a BRS 3000T stove. Everything here weighs in at slightly less than 12 ounces and costs between $50 and $60, and I'll put links in the description. Now, 12 ounces of weight is nothing to sneeze at. That's 3/4 of a pound. So if I went stoveless, I could get my above freezing base weight down from 8.7 to 7.9 pounds. That's almost a 10% reduction in weight, and that's huge. So maybe I should rethink this stoveless thing. Nah, I really do like eating a hot meal at the end of a long hiking day. So now let's talk a little about each item individually. Here's a mini Bic lighter, and this is all you need for fire. If you don't lose it and only flick it once a day to light your stove, it will actually last an entire AT through hike. So I did some torture tests, and this is what I found. One, you can flick it and hold the flame for 3 seconds more than 200 times. Two, you can submerge it in water for 5 minutes and it will work again after a few clicks. Three, you can freeze it at least -6 degrees Fahrenheit or -21 Celsius for you others for 24 hours and it will still work. So all that's pretty cool. So moving on, here's 1/4 of a bandana. Now, ultralight isn't always Dyneema and titanium. Sometimes it's just about bringing what's needed and nothing more. And I don't need a full-sized bandana for its purpose, so why carry it? I use it to clean off my spork after dinner, as well as my face and toothbrush after I brush my teeth. Next, a 110-gram fuel canister. The fuel canister is by far the heaviest item in my cook kit at 7.5 ounces, and in above freezing conditions, I can get 2 to 3 weeks out of one. So let me share a pro tip with you. You don't need to bring your water to a full boil. Once you see a bubble or two forming in the bottom of your cup, that's hot enough to rehydrate your food. Another interesting fact is you'll find half-used fuel canisters all along the trail in shelters and hiker boxes. You may never need to buy another fuel canister once you're on your journey. This is the ultralight version of the Toke's 550 milliliter titanium cup. It comes with a lid, but I toss it, which saves almost an ounce. What's important to some people is if you can nest a 110-gram fuel canister in your pot, and as you can see, you can. Now lastly, 2 cups of water equals about 475 milliliters, so rehydrating your own concoctions or mountain house type meals is not a problem. This is the MSR folding nylon spork. Now for years I used a long handle titanium spork, which worked great, but I switched to this to save a tiny bit of weight, plus it folds up small. Now the only thing to be aware of with this spork is it will flex when you stir your meal. Now it hasn't been a problem for me, but it's definitely something you should know. Now when I create my own freezer bag type meals, I'll drop the freezer bag in this radiant pouch before pouring in my hot water. I then seal it up. Now this does 2 things. First, it retains the heat better than just relying on the plastic freezer bag, and this helps with rehydration. Secondly, I can pick up and hold my meal without burning my fingers, and I assure you that's a plus. Finally, we get to my BRS 3000T stove. And this is the most controversial piece of my kit, as it has, shall we say, a reputation of uneven reliability. Now it's made from titanium and it's crazy light at less than an ounce, but it's straight from China where they aren't exactly known for their quality control. So if you want to, you can easily go on YouTube and find videos of these things failing. Now, with all of that being said, all I can tell you is mine has worked without issue for several hiking seasons. So there you go. That's my cook kit. Yes, there are lighter cook kits to be had, but not by much, of course, unless you go stoveless. This cook kit does exactly what I want, and that is to simply boil 2 cups of water with as little hassle as possible. So, tell us about your cook kit in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit that notification bell if you haven't done so already. And the last thing, you can see my entire pack list at nobo.at, the URL below. If you don't have a pack list yet, try out Nobo.at. It's better than Lighter Pack, and with that, I will see you next time.